On this video, I am continuing in the book of Ecclesiastes, what we have been looking at so far in the development of this very, very fascinating book is the vanity of so many things. After the introduction in chapter 1, he started out showing the vanity of human wisdom. For the more you know, the more sorrow you have, he says, because what is lacking cannot be numbered. And you can't figure out, you have questions and you have problems, but you can't solve those problems. That's in chapter 1, talking about human wisdom. Chapter 2, he talked about pleasure, materialism, houses, and building up one's material possession. And he concludes that that is vanity as well. And then he talks about wisdom and folly. They basically have a difference. The wise man knows where he's going, or the wise person, where the fool does not. Then he talked about the futility of toil. You can work and then leave it to someone that would destroy everything you've done. So he concludes by encouraging his readers to enjoy life. He keeps coming back to that theme. Enjoy the simple things of life. As we come to chapter 3, he talks about how everything seems to be and is ordained by God. There's a time for everything. A time to be born, a time to die. And he goes through describing how everything seems to have a season, everything is ordained, and there's nothing that can be added to it or taken away from it. A strong deterministic look at life. So he says that in light of this, one needs to enjoy life. Enjoy the life that God has given in the basic simple things of life. Then he comes to verse 16, where he's going to talk about the common fate of humankind and animals. There is the reality of mortality and death. And he talks about that, and he says, who knows what happens after that? He's not writing from a New Testament perspective, but he's looking at life at this point under the sun. As you look at life, you can only know what's beyond this life by looking at what Christ taught in the New Testament. He's simply observing life as you see an animal die, you see a human die, and who knows what happens after that. But we do know, as we look at the whole book of Ecclesiastes, at the end, he does make this wonderful statement that the spirit returns to God who gave it. So as you live life, realize you're to fear God and keep his commandments, because there is that reality. So he's not simply leaving us in chapter 3. What I would like to do is read it in Hebrew, look at the grammar, and as we look at the grammar, do like a running commentary. So we read verse 16. V'od ra'iti tachat hashemesh makom hamishpat shama harasha u'makom hatzedek shama harasha. That is, and indeed, moreover, I have seen that under the sun, in the place of justice, often, he said, there is wickedness. And that wickedness is there. and in the place of righteousness, that wickedness was there too. So he's simply saying, where there should be justice often, he's saying, I often see that which is wicked, bribery, other things going on. I think that's his thought. And so he made the statement then. Let me go back and look at the grammar just a minute here. And I saw under the sun. Ra'iti is from the root ra'ah, lamed hey verb, a cow perfect first common singular from ra'ah. I saw under the sun that the place of judgment there was wickedness. And with reference to the place of that which is righteousness, there was wickedness. And so he says, as I looked at both, what I'm seeing is wickedness, where there should be that which is just and righteous. He's probably looking again at often there is the miscarriage of justice based upon, for example, bribery and impartiality. That's, I think, is his point. Then in verse 17, he said, Amarti ani belibi, I said in my heart, et ha-tzadik va et ha-rasha yishpot ha-Elohim, that the righteous and the wicked God will judge, yishpot Elohim. For there is a time, ki ate lechol hefetz, there is a time for every purpose, va'al kol ha'ma'aseh sham, and for every work there. So, as we try to look at the grammar here, amarti is the cow perfect first common singular from amar, I saw, and it's emphatic here. Amarti ani, I saw. In my heart, meaning in my mind, that the judgment that the righteous and the wicked, that God will judge, but there is a time for every purpose and for every work. Yishpot is the cow imperfect third masculine singular, that the wicked God will yishpot, God will judge. For there is a time, ki ate lechol hefetz, for every purpose, there's a time for every purpose, va'al kol ha'ma'aseh sham, and for every work there. And there might mean in the judgment of God, there's a time. Sort of a strange thing to put sham at the end here, unless he's saying there is a time, maybe sometime in the world to come, there will be that judgment there, since there is a time for that. Some have felt that's the thought of the text. And then he goes on, Amarti, verse 18, Amarti ani belibi, I said in my heart, Al devrat b'nei Elohim. It is for the sake or because of the sons of men, levaram ha-Elohim, that God may test them. Velirot sha him, and that he may see shahim behema hema lahim, that he may see that they are for themselves as well as beasts. In other words, it looks like he's saying that God is testing and proving that man doesn't really fully understand everything. And he's proving that by what they're experience, what humans experience in this life, by not being able to put it all together. Notice to see there, levaram is from barar, and we could translate this to sift or to test. And I think that's the thought here, that men can pride themselves in knowing a lot. But if you examine them, the human scene, it proves that they don't know much more in what they're doing than what animals do. It seems to be the thought here. And basically, God is proving to them or testing them concerning the fact that they aren't as smart as they think. Seems to be the thought. So then in verse 19, he continues, furthermore, ki mikre b'nei ha'adam, for the happening, or that which falls out to the sons of men, umikre ha'behema, and that happening, or that which falls out to the beasts, that basically they're the same. In other words, for that which happens to humankind happens to the beasts. And there's one happening to all. Umikre echad lahem, kemot zeh, as the death of this one, or as the death of the one, kain mot zeh, so the death of the other. In other words, both man and beast have mortality, seems to be his thought. Beruach echad, and they all have one breath. Beruach echad lekol, so that man has really no preeminence above a beast. Motar ha'adam min ha'behema. That is, both are experiencing the reality of their mortality. And so he goes on to say, all then is vanity, ki hakol havo, that men have to face, like animals, the reality of the end of life and mortality, seems to be his point. And then in verse 20, hakol hulek el makom, all go el makom achad, all go to one place. Hakol hayamin ha'afar, all have been or are from the dust, v'hakol shav el ha'afar, and all return to dust. In other words, like in Genesis, to dust you are and dust you will return. So the thought seems to be all are going back to dust, whether humans or animals, seems to be his point. So how do you find how to live in light of that reality of mortality? Notice here, holek is a cow participle masculine singular from halak. All holek el makom echad, all go to one place, and all are from the dust, and all return shav el ha'afar, to the dust. Shav is a cow perfect third masculine singular from shuv, so all return to the dust. In other words, he's observing what he sees, that both humans and animals experience the same. They all end up with mortality. So he then asks the question in verse 21, Mi yodea ruach b'nei ha'adam, who knows the spirit of the sons of men, ha'olah he, whether it goes lema'alah, whether it goes upward, and ha'olah is a cow participle, feminine, third feminine singular from Allah, or the spirit of the sons of men, whether it is going upward, lema Allah, the ruach ha-behema, or the spirit of the beast, whether it goes down, ha-yoredet, he lamata la-aret, whether it goes down to the earth. In other words, by the way, ha-yoredet here is a cow participle feminine singular from yarad, to go down. So just looking on the surface without any further revelation, just looking at what one sees under the sun, how do we know whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes downward? How do we determine that with just sheer observation only? And I think that that's a point that I would like to say a word about. As a Christian, we have to go to the New Testament, where we have a clear understanding. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And there is the promise of resurrection someday in the New Testament. But the Kohelet at this point is not looking at further revelation. He's looking at just observation under the sun. And that's why, to me, it's so important to go to the New Testament to answer that question. How do we know? Well, we know because Christ has conquered death and said to the thief on the cross, "Today you shall be with me in paradise in your spirit." And then looking forward to the resurrection that Christ would provide. But he's just looking at it at this point from a mere human observational point of view under the sun. So wherefore, notice his conclusion, verse 22. V'ra'iti ki ein tov me'asher yismach ha'adam b'ma'asav ki hu helko ki mi yevi elnu lirot b'meshech yechye acharab. That is, wherefore, I have perceived, ra'iti, let me just do a bit of grammar here. Ra'iti is from ra'ah, a lamed hey verb, a cow perfect, first common singular. So I have perceived or seen that there is nothing better, ki ein tov, there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice. May asher, from that which a man should rejoice. We could probably render that then, that the man should rejoice. Yismach is the cow imperfect third masculine singular from samach. That the man should rejoice, b'ma asav, in his work, in his portion. Ki hu helko, for that is his portion, that is his work. Ki mu, in other words, enjoy life. Enjoy what you do. I think he's coming back to that theme in light of the fact that he said, just looking at life from an observational standpoint, you need to enjoy the day that you have life right now. Ki mi yavi enu, for who will bring him to see? Yavi enu is a hifil, imperfect third masculine singular from bo, followed by the pronominal suffix third masculine singular in the u here, would have been yevi and hu, where the hey of the who has gone back into the noon by retrogressive assimilation and causing a doubling. So who will cause to bring him, lerot, to see what that shall be after him? Lerot, by the way, is a cow infinitive construct from ra'ah. Who shall bring him to see what shall be she yehyeh from cow this is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from hayah. So what he's really saying here again, he's coming back to that theme. While one is alive, one is to enjoy his work and enjoy life. That is his portion. Enjoy each day that God has given to us. Now, as a Christian minister, we can add the New Testament to this that adds, I'm going to say, much more in terms of what the New Testament teaches about being absent from the body is present with the Lord. Jesus said to the thief on the cross, "Today you shall be with me in paradise." So New Testament gives us the fuller revelation that death is not the end, especially for a believer in Jesus Christ in the New Testament. So he's simply looking at it observationally under the sun, but his main theme is, in light of that, enjoy the life that you have right now. And that's true as we apply it to our lives. We do need to enjoy right now. And I have to keep telling myself that every day. The older I get, this day is a new day. Enjoy today and enjoy the moment. And so it's a beautiful challenge to us today. Enjoy life with your wife. That's what my wife Janet and I say every day. Let us enjoy this day to the fullest. And so I'm going to stop there and we'll move on, continuing to do some of the grammatical analysis. We've done a commentary already, but grammatical analysis along with commentary through this very, very outstanding work of the Kohelet.